and gentlemen, I'm Rekha Kaur from the Times of India, who will be moderating the webinar. Let me begin by thanking you all for agreeing to be part of the webinar being hosted for Namma Permanent Address, a joint initiative by the Times of India, India's most read English daily, and Credai Bengaluru, representing the collective unified voice of the real estate industry. The topic of the webinar is why now is a good time to get your permanent address. The idea behind the initiative is to ensure that correct and authentic information is communicated to people of the state, to Bengalurians especially, through a credible source, thereby helping people make an informed choice. Whatever may be the reason, there is no doubt that for most people, buying a house is one of the most important decisions of their life. So, is this the right time to buy a home in Bengaluru? Let's find out from our experts. So, let me go ahead and introduce the members present at this webinar. Mr. Abhijit Majumdar, Chief General Manager, State Bank of India. Mr. KP Agarwal, Business Head, Karnataka and Goa, HDFC Limited. Mr. Errol Fernandez, Secretary, Credai Bengaluru, Chairman and Managing Director, Ferns, Estates and Developers. Mr. Adarsh Narahari, Chairman, PR Committee, Credai Bengaluru. He is also the Managing Director of Primus Life Spaces Private Limited. My first question will be to Mr. Fernandez. Sir, owning a house is a dream for most people. Why do you think it is important for people to consider buying a home now? What makes this the best time to buy a house in Bengaluru?
Owning a house is a must, whether now or later. But now is an excellent time to buy a property. And the reason for that are many. For one, we are having historically the lowest interest rates ever in the history of our country, at around 6.75% to 7% per annum. If you take a loan, say for 30 years, the EMI is about rupees 650 per lakh. And if you were to compare this with the interest rate, say about 2 years ago, which was at 10%, and the EMI was about 875 rupees per lakh per month, your savings on a loan of 80 lakhs is about 60 lakhs. So you're actually getting it's like getting a huge discount on your property purchase. The second reason is that we are at the bottom of the real estate cycle. And as you know, at the bottom, the prices are at its best and the most attractive. And third, of course, today we have got a wide choice of apartments, houses, villas, and plots on sale. So with all these factors in mind, I mean, now is the best time ever to buy a property.
Okay. The next question will be for Mr. Adarsh Narahari. Why Bengaluru? Why Bengaluru is a good place to buy a property?
So the best part about Bangalore, right? It doesn't matter what social strata you're from, what religious, what religion you belong to, what are your interests. I think the Bangalore, every single human being can find somebody that they get along with here. We are the most city in India. We are the most welcoming and accepting city in India. And the social infrastructure in Bangalore is phenomenal. No matter what interest a person has, be it art, be it technology, be it music, be it entertainment, I think the choice that Bangalore offers is absolutely unbeatable. And now with the work from home, nobody can even complain about the traffic. So there's absolutely nothing to complain about. You got the weather, you have a social crowd, you have social infrastructure, and you have friends to have a great time.
Mr. Agarwal, post the pandemic, do you feel there has been an increase in demand for affordable home segment in the city?
I think the affordable segment is doing very good. And if you look at our, we did about 18% affordable housing in terms of values and 35% in terms of numbers to the EWS and the LIG segment. And the average loan size for the EWS was about around 10.02 lakhs. The average loan size for LIG was about 18 lakhs. So affordable housing has been doing good in India for a long time, and it will keep doing good. And I think the demand for affordable housing will keep increasing as the income of the LIG and the EWS category going up. But for a change, I think the last quarter we saw that the higher income group property moving and the sales are happening in that segment also, which was not happening for a long time. And I think first time ever in the last 2 quarters, we have seen that upwards of 2 crores in Bangalore is moving. The stock is moving and the inventory is going down. But surely affordable housing will keep doing good the way it has been doing.
Mr. Majumdar, what is the outlook for home loan rates this year? Will they go up or will they come down?
See, presently we can very safely predict that not only the rates are the lowest, of course, barring certain surprises, I think for some time the rates will continue to be low. See, what happened was there is a lot of liquidity in the banking system and growth in the rest of the economy. Of course, the government is trying its best, but it's yet to pick up. There is still not such a large fund in the rest of the economy, except a few sectors. The company has identified sectors in which special concessions are to, as opposed to the home loans. The real estate sector has turned around because pandemic. Number one, the importance of a home has been stressed beyond all arguments. People realized not only the importance of a home, how more important it is to have a larger home. And of the three big, the Bombay metro area and Bangalore, the resilience of Bangalore has been the highest, whereas the real estate sector declined by 50%. In Bangalore, it was only 23%. So all these and these several steps taken by different state governments point to the fact that real estate is going to boom in the next at least a few quarters.
Mr. Fernandez, what are the benefits of owning a house vis-a-vis renting or leasing?
You see, when you're buying a house, you're creating an asset, right? Whereas when you taking a house on rent, it's an expenditure. And therefore, if you can use the rent to pay off your loan as an EMI and create an asset, it's really a no-brainer why it's far better to own a house rather than rent a house.
What are the top emerging locations to invest in the city right now, according to you, Mr. Narahari?
So the beauty of Bangalore, like unlike many other cities, is we are a radial city. That does it allows the real estate market and for the city to grow in all directions equally. So it's very hard to say that one particular area is the other. But what is more interesting is with a good metro connectivity, if I take a circle and radius of 20 kilometers from the city center, say MG Road, even with metro connectivity at 5,500 rupees, you get residential real estate in Bangalore, which I think is uncomparable to any other metro as far as infrastructure is concerned. So any area in Bangalore is good. And I wouldn't like to say that a particular area is doing better only because of its radial nature. The other interesting thing is new asset classes are doing very well in Bangalore. For example, we are in senior living. The pandemic has made our business grow really fast. We're also seeing a lot of uptake in co-working, co-living, student housing. So Bangalore provides opportunities for all these alternate assets in real estate as well.
If you have to mention the top areas in the city.
So the top areas for velocity, if I go by what the traditional reports come, of course, parts of North Bangalore, Kanakpura Road, Bannerghatta Road in South Bangalore is doing well. The Whitefield belt has done well. The Sarjapur Outer Ring Road belt has done very well. So I think it's easier to say which part may not be selling as fast, but otherwise most of the areas have done well.
Okay. What is the buyer profile driving the demand in the city?
So typically the buyer profile, sorry, is that question to me?
Yeah, to you. Yeah.
So the buyer profile is mostly the end user. That is the other differentiating factor. A lot of the buyers are first-time home buyers, which is why the market is not driven by investors, and which is why the price is very sustainable and it doesn't change much in Bangalore. So the typical buyer profile is your early 30s, first-time home buyer who along with his family is making the purchase decision.
Coming to you, Mr. Majumdar, with so many banks and financial institutions offering home loans, how do buyers find out what suits them best?
Over the years, the government itself has been taking a few steps to make things simpler for home buyers. The first thing a person should keep in mind is whether the project is RERA approved, so that his capital that he books a house with is assured diversion. Secondly, if possible, he should look at the banks or institutions which have approved that particular ways. It ensures that all the regulatory guidelines have been followed by the builder. And secondly, that will ensure that the loan will also be sent by that particular institution in a much shorter time. Thirdly, he should look at all the charges being levied by either the banks or the financial institutions. There should be absolutely no case for fine print. Wherever possible, the other charges that are levied by banks and financial institutions, like processing charges, mortgage charges, or any others, what are the comparative statements or facilities? And lastly, but the most important is the interest rate. So at least these 4 or 5 things should be very clear. One should make a comparative chart of this and then pick the institution which is the institution of choice for the buyer.
Okay. Coming to you, Mr. Agarwal, how can banks make the entire home loan application and approval process easier for home buyers?
I think if you see over the years, I've been in this industry for around 20 years now doing mortgages. I think over the years, the process has become simpler. I know the era where every loan used to only get approved once to give a personal guarantor. And a co-applicant was mandatory in a lot of banks. Today, we are into a phase where I think in a click of a button, a home buyer can apply for a loan sitting at his home without even touch basing any official of a bank, and he gets a loan in maybe 24 hours. So all 60-70% of our loan are getting approved by less than 72 hours from the day the applicant is applying for a loan. 80% of our applications are digital now. So a customer is not interacting with any individual in the entire process of sanction of a loan. So I think the process has become way simpler. I think to go further simplicity, I think the KYC norms have to, so the government can help us, giving the service to a customer faster. If we do the central KYCs of a customer, it would be much easier for a customer to, submit the KYCs. They don't have to actually submit KYCs if the central KYC is registered. So it can be surely more simple, but I don't think today's era, any customer struggle for a sanction of a loan. I think sanction of a loan has become very simple. 3-4 documents for a salaried customers and you get a loan.
Okay. To you, Mr. Fernandez, how has COVID impacted home buying decisions?
COVID created a deep sense of insecurity for people. So one way that they dealt with this insecurity were they started investing their money on creating assets. And when you want to invest in an asset, the top of the priority is investing in real estate. As a result, we have seen a surge in real estate sales from the month of June onwards. Also, in real estate, we find that now people prefer larger spaces because when you work from home or you're studying from home, and you're spending so much of time indoors, entertainment has also come indoors with OTT. So with so much of time being spent at home, they find that they need now larger spaces, like instead of a 2-bedroom, maybe a 3-bedroom, or instead of 3-bedroom, maybe a 4-bedroom. And if they have the choice, they would prefer to be part of a larger gated community, which has a lot of amenities. So that being the case, and with the metro being online and expanding to various parts of the city, people are actually now preferring to go further away from the city rather than being closer to CBD. You see, where travel was before uh, a factor in choosing a location to be as close to the office,
True.
not your office, but to the wife's office, or to the children's school. Your office always came last. Now that no longer, now that no longer is a priority in decision making. So people are going further away, looking for quality of life and looking to live in larger spaces.
Sir, what are the ways technology is transforming the real estate industry in the city in
Is
this
that-
pandemic era? Technology,
yeah.
how is it aiding the process, home buying process for both buyers as well as for builders?
It's actually technology has always been there. It's just that we didn't have the confidence to use it. And now COVID has
You
forced
didn't
us.
feel the need to go forward and opt
Yeah,
for that, isn't
that's
it?
right. So now COVID has
It's
forced us to
always
use
like face to
technology.
face is much more comfortable.
Yes.
To,
For example, even the Zoom meeting that we are doing, you would have insisted maybe a year ago for us to come to your studio.
studio, exactly.
Yep. So now we can do the comforts of our office. And I can attend a PTA session of my children sitting at home. And I can say hi and bye to my wife from my office if I'm going to be late. So,
Can you just tell me a few points on that? How it is aiding? Which are the how technology is aiding the real estate sector?
in
How is it
the real
helping?
estate sector, yeah.
Yeah.
See, for example, now in IoT, it's Internet of Things.
And also, I would like to ask you one more question. This digital site visits or personal interaction, which one do you prefer? As a builder, as like, do you feel that connect is important? You would want the home buyers to come to your office, have that connect, have that meeting, or is that fine like this digital, somebody from your office showing them the digital, the site uh, where the building is happening or the construction is happening, that is preferred, or what is the, when it comes to sentiments, or
It's actually mostly the customer's choice. We would like them to come to the office so we can meet them face to face. But it's also very convenient for customers to take decisions sitting from the comforts of their home, and where they can view their projects online through our digital cameras, and we take them through a virtual walkthrough, which was always there anyways, but just that now it's become a lot more widely used. Yeah,
widely
and-
used? Yes.
yeah, yes, that's right. And conferencing can be done. The conversations can be held online. So a lot of sales are happening online, including interactions, including pre-sales interactions. Previously, no matter what, a client would always want to visit the office, feel and touch the builder's office, see the builder's face.
Yeah.
Now we are more comfortable doing this virtually.
Yeah.
So that has helped speed up decision-making process. Our cash flows have increased because previously the customer couldn't physically visit your office for any reason, starting from work in the office or because of his mother-in-law. Our cash flows were held up, but now that is no longer the case.
Okay. Mr. Narahari, yeah. How different is the Bangalore market when it comes to residential real estate?
That's an interesting question. So Bangalore is very different when it comes to residential real estate in 2-3 ways. I think the first way is the average quality of the developer and the construction. What I mean by that is, if you see the general quality of construction in Bangalore and the track record of delivery of the developer, of an average developer of Bangalore, and Bangalore has very large developers who have pan South India or pan India presence in some cases. I think that is the number one differentiating factor, that is on an average, the standard of the building and the delivery of the end product to the customer is far better than most other cities. So I would say Bangalore is very different in that way. The other
A lot
way,
of credibility attached to it.
I'm sorry?
A lot of credibility is attached to it.
Absolutely. So if you, on a general, the average delay or the average delivery track record is much better. Like for example, if the average delay in Bangalore is say 3 or 6 months, in an NCR it would probably be 60 or 70 months. That's what I mean to say. And if you also visit a typical project as a normal home buyer, the quality of materials used, the quality of the finishes, the importance that is given to aesthetics and design is far greater. So that's how Bangalore, because Bangalore customer is the most educated and the most demanding, they have also made the best quality of developers to come out of Bangalore. So that's the first way that it's different. The other thing, like I mentioned earlier, Bangalore is largely driven by end users. So because it's largely driven by end users, the returns of real estate, the rental returns, everything is a lot more sustainable. So we don't see any sinusoidal wave as far as the prices are concerned. That's how it's different.
Coming to Mr. Majumdar, sir, is there a change in house purchase plan in urban and rural areas? How's the trend?
See, as far as the trends are concerned, the rural areas have not picked up as much as Bangalore center itself. So I will not like to get into a comparison mode at the moment. But Bangalore has, stabilized around almost pre-COVID levels now. Like the previous calendar year, I think around February was the best month for the industry in Bangalore. We have come back to those levels. But the choice for houses seems to be slightly bigger accommodation. And because of that, the prices are quite stable at the pre-COVID levels or slightly lower than that. Because obviously this is not a perishable product. This can stay for some time. And because of the quick revival of the demand in the market, people are not in a hurry to dispose of their inventory. So we don't see much of a fluctuation in the market as far as the prices are concerned.
Yeah, with reduction of home loan rates, there has been an increase in home loans. You feel so?
Yeah, the home rates as far as over the previous year, they have gone down by about on an average about 55 basis points. They are around 6.65 to 85 at present for a 40 to 50 lakh loan, which is an average ticket size in Bangalore.
Okay, right. So, Mr. Agarwal, is buying a second home a good idea? What are the benefits of buying a second home?
See, if you see residential, I think Bangalore gives you a little better ROI as far as the rentals of a residence is concerned vis-a-vis any other part of the country, major cities I'm talking about. So if you take about 5,500 to 6,000, as Adarsh was saying, I think mostly 90% of Bangalore property is 6,000 rupees per square feet of less. And if you take an averaged a 2 BHK or a 3 BHK is about 80 odd lakhs in Bangalore, you get about 25 odd thousand rupees as a rental, which is about 3 lakhs per annum. So Bangalore, you get about 2.5 to 3% as your rental returns. And if you're paying 6.75 as your interest rates with 5% inflation, I think 2.5-3% rental return is a very good return, I would say. If you get, hoping for it can be better, but nowhere in the country, you get 2.5-3% residential rental returns on an investment of the second house. So for an example, if you buy a similar 3 BHK in NCR, you may give about 1.5 crore, for which you pay about 80 odd lakhs in Bangalore. And your rentals are more or less the same. It's about 25-30,000 rupees per month. So your rental returns in NCR would be about 1.5%. So I think in Bangalore, considering the fact that property prices are about 6,000 rupees per square feet, it makes sense for people to invest in property and to diversify their portfolio. And what is also happening, because the stock market has reached obviously the all-time high and it is just moving up and up. We don't know where it will stop. A lot of individual retail investors are de-risking themselves, booking their profits, taking their money and investing in properties now.
Yeah, so people are seeing home as an investment.
Yeah, so
they want to invest.
you may settle down with a lower return, but you want your money, you want your capital to be there. You want a sustainable, diversified portfolio where you want your capital to be intact. Where are the opportunities for a retail investors to invest any which way? You have stocks, you have properties. I think in
Other
India,
thing is people are opting for going for second homes.
surely, we
Yeah.
know
That will be
investors
the
going for
place
third and the
coming
fourth home.
from. So this is a perfect time for people to go for one.
I think a perfect time. I think Errol started with that, and I think uh, uh, there is a lot of demonstrations the government has done uh, for people to buy property. We have subsidy schemes, we have rebates on income tax, on principal and interest. We have rebate on stamp duties. Now Maharashtra has shown a further improvement, and they have relaxed 50% of the premiums on a project. So I think the state government as well as the central government are doing a lot of taking a lot of steps to make it easier for and maybe commercially viable for people to invest in properties.
Yeah.
But on the other side, if you look at a retail investor in India has no options to invest. They don't have the capability also to understand as to where to invest. So most obvious investment is mutual fund, stock market, and properties. I think as a retail investor in India, you only know these three investments. If you ask any more investments, 90% of the people will not even name any fourth investments they know.
Yeah.
And maybe fourth one could be gold, maybe.
Yeah. Errol, is there demand for homes with inbuilt office facilities now that work from home is the trend? So what are the preferences? What do people, because now the cash base is like bigger the better. That's what people want. Like as you said earlier. So is there also demand for when they want homes with office facilities also to be taken care of?
It's not just the work from home culture that's happening, it's also the entertainment. Like I said, OTTs now become the norm. And then now people, instead of meeting in restaurants, they prefer entertaining at home. Have a drink, friends get together, go to another friend's place, meet up, socialize, or even the clubhouse in the community is becoming a very popular place these days. So people are therefore looking at larger places to invest in rather than stay in smaller places closer to CBD. And also besides that, with e-commerce becoming mainstream, today you don't need to be close to CBD, close to a mall, or close to your retail outlets and so on and so forth. So that's another way that technology has hastened change in lifestyles. And people don't mind, for example, you actually get a much bigger place, a more comfortable place for the same amount of money if you move a little out of the city. So this, I think, is a trend that's going to stay, because this was also a trend in the West where people could get larger places for the same amount of money. And I think India is following in that direction, and Bangalore in particular.
Any additional benefits of buying a house in the city, Mr. Narahari? I think you've covered most of them. If you have left,
I will add a few more. So recently, London and Partners, which is a large consultancy firm based out of UK, rated Bangalore as the number one fastest growing tech capital in the world.
Yes.
Tesla has set up an R&D center in Bangalore. Apple has finalized the largest facility in Bangalore. Bangalore is leading the electric mobility movement in the entire country. Our industries department has opened up a lot of favorable policies for new investors and new industry to come and set up in Bangalore or in Karnataka. So what all of this means is that Bangalore is going to become an engine of employment over the next 5 to 10 years. And when that happens, the most obvious benefiting sector is real estate, because if people are getting a job, they're also going to need a place to stay in. Yeah. So anybody who invests in Bangalore will always find that the prices are going up. It's easy to sell, it's easy to rent. You get a great lifestyle, you have lovely schools, good education for the kids. Healthcare infrastructure is great. So there's just no going wrong with Bangalore.
So if you have to just tell me any 5 trends, real estate trends for 2021 going forward.
I think the real estate trends will be technology enabled homes, larger homes, bigger sized communities, more mixed use developments,
Will there be a demand for integrated townships?
I would say integrated township. When I say mixed use, I mean to say we'll see a lot of projects that have bringing different real estate assets into the fold. So you will find residential, senior living, co-working, co-living, these kind of mixture of housing where.
I think there's a demand for senior living
Sorry?
segment. Demand for senior living homes.
It's gone through the
Has
roof.
there been a demand now post-COVID? Do you see
COVID
there has
is that elders are the most vulnerable population in the
I
country,
know, yeah.
and the senior homes
So when
provided
they
a
live abroad and it's only the parents usually, so maybe they would want to secure their parents. So do you feel that segment there has been a demand for that segment?
there's been a massive demand. So
Okay.
because now the conversation around taking care of elders is happening every day at home. So most of the
Yes.
children are moving their elders into communities that are taking care of them in a social setting which is secure. So they don't need to step out for anything. Food is taken care of, security, safety, healthcare. So they get all services within a particular complex. So obviously, the demand for something like that has gone up exponentially.
Great, fantastic. Mr. Majumdar, what are the special packages offered in home loans?
Well, there are lots of things for different groups. Like for our corporate customers, we have quick delivery systems based on the salary aspects. Then another trend that has set in is anybody with an asset should ideally have it insured, both the asset itself and the owner of the asset. So these come at concessional rates for the salaried people. For the business class, we have special products which take care of their uneven cash flows. Sometimes they may have a huge surplus of liquid cash. I can credit it in an account so that they save on the interest rate. But depending upon the tenure of the loan, they can draw later on if they need to. So it's a sort of combined current business current account and attendant tax benefits. So depending upon the particular, the risk appetite of the borrower, the tenure for the asset class, we have several different packages for each category of prospective home loan.
Okay. Mr. Agarwal, what are the incentives being offered for buyers who opt for such homes?
Which homes you say?
Like now the interest rates have come down. So if people want to opt for homes, do you have any special incentives for them, for buyers?
I think interest rate itself is an incentive
It's a good
nowadays.
time for the banks to cash on, right? So do you have any special incentives?
I think in real estate, the most important thing for a customer is the assurance that I'll get my loan on time when I need it. The transaction is smoother, and the commitment given by the frontline staff as well as the sales executives adhered to. I think that's one of the most important aspect of a real estate transaction, because real estate home loan is a way different loan than a personal loan or a car loan. You know, it's more built on trust, it's more built on assurance, and delivery is very important in a home loan. So I think that in home loan, as much as we can keep the transaction simpler, it is better for the buyer and the borrower to take the loan on time and meet his commitments on time. I think that is one of the most important aspect, and we sort of work that out very closely with the home buyer.
People who are opting for affordable homes, do you have any special incentives for them? Like,
I think we have the CLSS scheme, which the government has provided, and obviously, you know, all the banks and the HFCs are the vehicle for the customer to avail these subsidy schemes. And again, I'll come back to the same thing. If we can be transparent to the customer on the eligibility of the CLSS scheme, and we can help through the customer to get that subsidy itself, is a big support to a customer, because it, you know, if a loan is about 35 lakhs subsidy schemes is about 7 to 8% of the total loan amount, which is a huge discount to the home buyer. And basically it's a discount on the property. So if somebody is buying a property for 40-50 lakhs, he gets about 5 to 6% discount on the property through this CLSS subsidy. So I think that itself is a big push which the government has given for affordable housing. And I think the government has done a wonderful job. It has been going on extended till 31st March 2021. Let's see if it gets extended further. But I think that's a big push for the affordable housing.
Coming to the most important question, Mr. Fernandez, this is for you. What kind of help does the real estate sector in the city expect from the government? And how has the government helped the sector so far?
We're coming to the end of the seminar, but I can write a book on what the government can do for the sector. Believe me, we need some 20 odd permissions, clearances, NOCs before we can kickstart a project. It takes anywhere between 6 months to a year and a half. And if you've got elections in between, that can stretch even further. And then the amount of paperwork, bureaucracy that one has to go through to start a project is not funny. Unlike in an industry, once you get your approvals, then you're just producing. A new project is like starting a new, so you can imagine the pain points we have to face. And what has the government done so far? I really am not too sure. Nothing much, actually.
One last question for Mr. Narahari. Among the different residential segments, which segment is most in demand today?
Among the different residential segments, I think affordable housing is most in demand. Mid-market affordable housing, 45 lakhs to 60 lakhs. I think that is following. In the last few months, we have seen a very good demand for high value inventory. So ready to move in inventory of 2 to 3.5 crores has moved very well as well. And lastly, senior living and elder care has been in great demand.
So I think we have come to the session webinar. To thank each one of you all for taking your time out and participating in this session. And wishing you all a very happy and prosperous 2021. All the best to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, Adarsh. See you.
Thank you.
Right, Mr. Agarwal. Nice meeting you. Mr. Majumdar, you too.
Same here.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Adarsh.
Priyanka, if you're around,
Good to see you,
thank
Mr.
you very
Majumdar.
much.